Hello and welcome to the latest in the Leaders with Ambition podcast series. And today I am absolutely delighted to welcome my guest, Adam Granger. Adam is COO at Baker Tilly International, and it's going to be a really interesting podcast today, which sees Adam starting his career as a trainee auditor at Baker Tilly UK, and then developing into this role that he has today, COO Baker Tilly International. Along the way, there was a secondment in the US, which we will talk about because it's really interesting that at the time, Adam's mentor, boss, leader really recognized that an opportunity to do something really different would enable Adam to continue to really develop, to push him out of his comfort zone. So there was a short secondment that got elongated in the US. There's also a role as a CIO, which Adam will talk about, which again really helped him to be close to the business, to really understand how it worked operationally to enable him to step up into his current role. We will talk about leadership, we'll talk about mentoring and the impact that this has had on Adam's personal career, and how that's also enabled him to become the leader he is today. And the learning curve and his belief in how you empower teams to become as successful as possible, how you really create that psychological safety, and how you give people an opportunity to be their best selves in the work-based environment. So an interesting conversation ahead. And without further ado, Adam, I'm going to hand over to you to bring your personal story to life for us.
Yeah, Nikki, thank you. Thanks very much for having me. It's a real pleasure to get to do this. And it's nice to reflect sometimes, spend a lot of time looking forward and don't get very often to kind of look back and have a think about things.
That is so true.
Yeah, it's one of those things and I know this, people are going to roll their eyes, but like every year when you go through the dreaded appraisal process or things like that, it's actually, I tend to think of it another way. It's like, it's so nice to look back and go, oh, right, yeah, I have actually, or hopefully anyway, I have actually done some good things and got some stuff done. It's just amazing where the time goes. So no, really looking forward to talking about it. It is sadly a little bit longer ago than I sometimes like to admit. It feels like yesterday, but it's a fair bit longer that I got started. So career started in Baker Tilly UK, as it was at the time, now RSM, and a fantastic firm then and still is now. I started the journey after university and I did study finance, accounting and the like, and that was something I'd always been interested in. I think basically because I like numbers. I won't admit to knowing anything about the profession or anything like that. I didn't. It just seemed to fit within the skill set. And although I was always interested more broadly in what I'll just call at the time business, again, not really knowing what business was, but through friends.
So many things business. I love it.
Yeah, well, it just covers a huge amount. It's like, that's what I'm going to go into. And I think looking at particularly my family, especially all of my family, but two uncles in particular, running a business or running businesses and the things that they did in there, and then friends of the family who'd been involved in banking, some who'd been more in the kind of the accountancy space, and others, again, just general business. I thought, right, okay, this seems interesting, because it was less about what they did, but more they always had good stories and people they met and people they spent time with, sometimes places they went, whether that was in the UK just up the road or going overseas. And good friend of the family was talking about time in India. And I thought, okay, right, this is actually, it's really interesting. It's not just going to sit in an office or whatever that may be. It's about meeting people and getting to see new places. So that kicked off there and into university going, right, that's broadly what I'd like to do around finance and management accounting. And we all know uni's not really always so much about the subject and more about the other experiences. But I did also have amazing tutors, a great course, and learned a lot before moving in, as I said, to Baker Tilly. And that's really where everything started as accountant, as an auditor. And I think as an auditor, it's still something I still think is a great profession, and often maybe misunderstood. And it's, again, things aren't for everybody, but for me, being an auditor, it's so broad what you got to do, the exposure to different companies, different people. And very early on, I see that this is a theme that will come through. I was moving around the UK. If there was an away job, I wanted to go because it was a chance to see somewhere different, be with different people, and kind of be pushed to get on with things yourself a little bit. So that's really where all the journey started. Chartered accountant after the training, after 3 years, and continued to work with Baker Tilly, who were amazing with me in those first 3 or 4 years. So many opportunities within the firm, people supporting you the whole way, and had even then, I'd say, great mentors in the firm, a fantastic managing partner of the office I was in, and then the region, who really went out of their way to try and identify opportunities for people to push them.
Yeah.
Which
But
after that period
you
is,
were working hard as well, weren't you? So you were actually putting your hands up for work, but also working hard and being recognised. You've got
yeah,
to
and it
commit,
was,
haven't you, to this career?
yeah, you have got to. You certainly have. There's so many opportunities here, and it's nice because you're with a group of people who I think are broadly the same and looking to do these things, and you're working with clients who are obviously ambitious because they've got successful businesses on the whole, which is a good thing. So I think that helps to elevate you more and more. I just found it such an intriguing career where you get exposed to so many things. And again, they're just, I think I'd look back now, and it's very hard at that age and everything like that when you're just coming into the workplace, I think, to truly, truly know what you want to do. Some people do, and that's great. But then there's a lot of people who might have a broad idea, but to start narrowing that down takes some time. And this kind of career path and working for a company like Baker Tilly at the time, and what people would push you to do and the opportunities that were there, you really could put your hand up and say, I want to go and have a look at that. And someone would support you and give you the chance to do it. And yeah, you had to work hard, but there was very much those opportunities to go and do it, which was
Yeah, very good.
fantastic.
And what stage then? You've been there 3 or 4 years. You've qualified, as you say. What stage did you think, yes, this is a career for me? Because it sounds like you wanted to do business, as you say. You wanted to have this exposure to people and businesses. But did you know now this was going to be your career?
Yeah, I'd say I did. At that point, I thought very sort of, in a way, blinkered, but hopefully in a good way, that I really enjoyed what I was doing. I really enjoyed being an auditor in particular, and the variety that seemed to give at the time. And the career path would have been the natural thing, I think, when you then want to stay in the industry of, I want to be a partner and I want
Yeah.
to work with this firm. And I very much did. And I very much wanted to stay with the firm. I couldn't imagine going anywhere else. And it's funny, when you qualify, suddenly you get recruiters calling you and everything, which is absolutely fine. There's plenty of people who want to go. It's nice to have options. I remember having a few phone calls and messages coming through, and you can't help but take a look. But the same point for me, I was with a firm and people that I just loved working with, and gave so many opportunities anyway. I was like, well, I don't need to go outside of this.
Yeah.
That's one way you can go. Nothing wrong with that. But for me, there was a journey there, that I felt that I could go on, that I felt the firm would back me on. And that sort of started, to come together. But as part of that, particularly speaking to the managing partner of the Berry office at the time where I was at, a gentleman called Stephen Dufferty, he was amazing at giving people opportunities. Absolutely amazing. I remember one day him just picking me up and going, right, we're going out to this potential meeting, a meeting tomorrow with a potential client. Probably time you come and start doing a few things like this, so you keep. It's like, excellent. I mean, I remember at the time being worried about, what's my manager going to say? And what about my chargeable time? And still not quite knowing sometimes how these things work. It's like, come on, you've got to go and do this. And it took me on several things like that, which just helped to expose me to other people, other bits that were happening, and what the business again was really all about. And through that is where other connections were made, and got a chance to meet the head of HR for the UK firm, which got me talking about our international network, Baker Tilly International, which I'm in now. And then that led to going off in a slightly different direction, being able to have the opportunity to speak to the CEO of the network at the time, putting forward my CV and a covering letter about what I was looking to do. And I actually just spoke to him 15 minutes ago, and still mentor, very much a friend. And at the time, I remember him saying, well, what do you think? What do you think's out there? And I didn't particularly know. And I asked around, and I put together, look, this is what I enjoy doing. This is what I'd like to spend more time on. I think internet, again, as I said, business earlier, I sort of said international as if it's a thing. But today, I think the difference, frankly, worked quite well for me, was actually saying I'd love to see what the international office actually does. And sort of to my surprise, I don't think anyone had really asked that before. It more being you worked for the firm and then you went to work with another firm on a secondment, which is an amazing opportunity in itself. I was just, I think, in all honesty, lucky that I was intrigued by what our international office did. and
Yeah.
the timing worked. And again, yet another great person, a couple of great people, the HR leader and then the CEO of the network, both saying, well, let's take a look at this. Let's speak to this person. Let's give them a chance. Let's talk it through. And then an opportunity presenting itself to work for the international office.
Well, again, that's so brave, isn't it? As you say, people don't normally do that. And yet there's something in you that is curious, wanting to explore, and then also sending your CV, the cover letter through.
Yeah, I gotta admit, there was that bit of, I don't know. So yeah, some of it brave, some of it not
Yeah.
knowing, some of the things, well, you've just got to go for it. And that was again having, good people around, whether it's friends, family, but also I'll always come back to the firm of people like Stephen and I like in that office who were like, well, you've got to go for it. And I had a couple of good friends who I worked with at the time, but particularly one very, very good friend who's still a best friend who I worked with. And we would always, push each other, I think, in a very constructive way.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I said to you before, where I put it is that when we were doing things, we both wanted to do really, really well. And we wanted the other one to do really, really well. If he got 99, I wanted to get 100, vice versa. So we wanted to just that say that was really good. But it was great as well because we would talk about these things and that sounding board, which gave that sort of extra confidence, I suppose, to go for it. But it's very much that environment I was in that I think the firm had created.
Yeah.
And not just the firm, the people there who gave you the confidence to do that. And you knew you had people who were backing you and were really interested in helping you and getting you there as well.
Yeah. I think that's a really important point you make about your peer who is your friend as well. And the fact that sometimes you don't recognize that it's your peers that you can have this great psychological safety with early on in your career. And then that does travel through to later on in your career when it does get more lonely at the top, doesn't it? But you've got this group of psychological safety around you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Because you're going through the same things and it's nice to, to be able to be a bit more vulnerable and just say, I don't know.
Yeah.
And, the kind of the what if and spitballing those ideas and talking them through is so valuable. As you say, it gets harder as you go on. It's something I think is so invaluable, whoever that is, whether it's something in your career or outside, to talk to somebody else. And I certainly wouldn't say I'm good at it because I get quite frustrated with myself when I don't do it, but it's trying to find the time to do that. Trying to solve it all on your own is not a good place to be, I don't think.
That's challenging, isn't it? And what about then, have you had any executive coaching throughout your career out of interest? You've had some really inspirational role models, you've had mentors, you've had leaders. What about executive personal coaching?
So a little bit, but nothing on a long-term basis. It's come in at different times for particular needs. Now, I mean, I'd be completely honest with you, I think it would be something, and it's something I've thought about more and more over the last couple of years, and I really would like to do it. I've continued down a more short-term basis at the moment of using different people for different things that I've needed, particularly moving into this role. And maybe that's been a bit more focused and on specific areas as opposed to a slightly broader context and that overall, well, what I would actually call coaching. I'd say I've probably had more, if I'm completely honest, training and guidance than more than a coaching approach. But I think, that certainly is something that's needed. And what I would also add is, and hopefully she wouldn't mind me saying it, but I feel like our CEO here, Francesca, has played that role as well. It's been continually fantastic with me in the opportunity that I've been given here, but constantly working on that. That's something that I think she does all of the time, consciously and unconsciously. So that's been huge for me to have that, basically at hand the whole time. Now, I know, again, it'd be great to have something external and I have that in the various other contexts, but I would feel in a way I've already had, or I continue to have some great coaching, but it'll be something that I'll need more of going forward. Like, that's the biggest thing for me is in this role, any role I've done, is you're never done and you're never finished learning or anything like that. And it's, if I'm honest, it's a place I never want to get to. There's a few times on something where I feel maybe get a bit comfortable, or I catch myself going, well, that's what we do, or in my head, that's what we've always done. I think, hang on a minute. Okay, that is maybe what we've always done. And maybe that's what I know because I've been around as long as I've been around, but that's not a good place to be in. There's other people who either don't know this or have got better ideas, or frankly, I'm not looking at things and realizing, as I try to always say and think, that things change, the world moves on, etc., etc. So I need to be conscious of that.
Yeah, I love that. And going back into one of the really impactful periods of your career was when you did go and spend the time in the US, wasn't it, on the secondment, and how that really helped develop you as a person and your career?
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I mean, that really is, it is a defining moment. I don't like to say there's moments maybe more than others in some regards, but that was huge for so many reasons because of obviously yes, the work side of things, but personally moving my life and going to, as much as maybe we think in the UK, the US, very similar, it's markedly different. Same
Yeah.
as going almost any other country is going to be markedly different. So through those meetings that I had, the opportunity came up to go to the US to work with our North American firms. At the time, we had a lot more firms in the US because of the way the market was built, in Canada, the Caribbean firms, and originally went over for what was going to be about a 5-month period, which then went up to the nearly 18 months. And that was being the regional director, as we called it, for the North American region, about putting
Right.
those firms together, getting them to work together, share the international resources and the like. And it was a really interesting time to be there. The market as a whole, especially for our network, was sort of consolidating as firms became more national. We had the brand in the marketplace with the firm for the first time. So it was always something that was going to change from around 26, 27 firms when I went over to where we are today, which is 4 firms in the US, 1 in Canada, and then firms in the Caribbean as well. So it's a really interesting time to be there. I think I was, not that the age really matter, but it is relevant. In fact, I was 25, 26, and my first meeting 3 days in was with the 26, 27 US managing partners.
Wow.
Fantastic bunch, hugely successful, but at a time that was a bit more difficult for our network and working out what to do with the US firms as the market effectively in a way became smaller as firms became national and alike. So it was quite a big entry into it and a lot to pick up very quickly. But
Did you have imposter syndrome at all then? Because that's a, big move.
yeah, I mean, absolutely, absolutely, and I think I think there was definitely, and understandably so. I've got no problem with this. I could see from some of the looks of who the heck's this guy, who's this kid that's been sent over, and again, absolutely fine. I was following on from someone who'd done the role before, more experience, bigger profile, everything like that, and so I definitely did feel that way. But I think then your experiences do kick in of what you've had today.
Yeah.
And it's like, right, you've been given the opportunity to do this and selected to do it because they think you can do it. You've got the backing of the team here back in London, the CEO, the COO, hugely supportive, and you've got a specific role to do and you know what you've got to do. You go and do this. And sometimes, for me anyway, it came down to, well, I'm going to work hard and show them what I've got. So it quickly turned into well, this is an opportunity to prove myself. And, you know, everyone there was very supportive, and over the time I got to know them all. But particularly there was a few straight away who came straight up, very supportive, really kind words, offered to help, phone calls, get together if you need something to get up to speed. If you're not sure on something, look, we don't expect you to know everything. You're coming to a region you've not been to before. You're dealing with, there's things going on at the moment that even we've not dealt with before, so we can work on this together. And we had a absolutely fantastic regional chair there, and I was based in that office with him. And again, he became a mentor and a great supporter who I just learned so much from. He was an early bird like I was. He was probably even earlier than me. So I quickly learned that getting in early, that was the time to spend time with him, and would always get dedicated time together. And he was a huge supporter. I learned,
You did.
I'd already learned a huge amount in the 3 or 4 years, but I think in that next kind of 12 to 15, 16 months, it was the sharpest learning curve ever, but in a really, really good way.
Positive way. And did you always think you were going to come back? Was there any stage where you thought, actually, now this is my life? Or was it in your head, this is a secondment, I want to go back and continue my career in the UK?
In all honesty, I was torn, and I was again torn in a good way, as I felt I had 2 paths. I'm sure there was many more, but it felt at the time 2 paths. So there was the go back,
Yeah.
continue the career with the UK firm and back into audit. And then there was the continue where I was and make that permanent. And again, in all honesty, I didn't know. They were both fantastic options. So I kept trying to weigh everything up. But ultimately I chose to come back. I did want to go back to the UK firm. They were the ones that had trained me, backed me from the start, given me everything. Not that I hadn't had everything in the last kind of 12, 18 months as well. It was that desire to go back and still in my head of continuing with the firm and going towards and hoping for the partner route. So I did come back and I went for that option as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you say coming back, but really you were coming to something different again, weren't you? You weren't going back into the role that you'd done previously. You were still,
No.
oh yeah.
Yeah, no, again, UK firm, fantastic. The regional leader who had a national lead role in audit at the time, I stayed in touch, had been the big supporter of me going in the first place, but then was very keen to do something. And if I wanted to come back about that path and and really having a great leadership and career development path that they put together and trying to accelerate that as well, which was huge. And when I look back now and I think what she would have done to kind of make that happen and alike was always something I'll appreciate. And I think she really did go out of her way. And that was coming back, moving into the London office of the firm, going into a position again. When I look back now, being put in as a manager at the time, I think, I would say ahead of my time, even though I had these great experiences over in the States and everything else I'd done, I was anywhere near as sharp as the other people in the firm and things like that. Who were actually in that office and were used to working together, had been there for a period of time.
Yeah.
But again, huge support there and in touch with a number of them now. There's one I'm working with at the moment who sat opposite and just hugely supportive. When I do look back and I think, and sometimes when things happen, people, if they come into the team here or people come into our network at a particular role, I'll be honest, I'm not always the best at it. There's times when I forget that, or I think, say, right, this is going to take some time to get up to speed or to work with, or hang on, that would have been a bit better. But that's not the bigger picture. And everyone there was very good at, I think, that bigger picture and understanding why this had happened. And again, giving me help, support, making me feel at home. And what ended up only being 18 months, jumping ahead until I came back to international, it was, again, a hugely supportive environment. And I look back at that time of, again, accelerated learning experience of, right, I've got to get back into this very quickly. And I had an international client base, a number of those clients down in Africa, which was super interesting, great portfolio to be given. But again, another stretch because it was things I hadn't done previously and bits I hadn't considered. But again, a great support network here and a really, really enjoyable time. And people there who are friends who I'll never be able to probably thank enough for those opportunities and support. Ultimately, the international side of things was still there, and there was an itch to go back there as well.
So when you made that decision, and as you say, you've thrown yourself back into it, you're surrounded by some really great people again that you're starting to really learn from, and it's pushing you in to do and achieve your best all the time. What was your goal then? Were you thinking maybe not partner now, maybe more going towards running the business? Where were you?
Yeah, I think so. For me, what was interesting is after the experiences in the US and North America as a whole, I realized it was just quite a much broader experience.
Yeah.
Even broader than I was already getting, that I really liked, and the different client base. But I found I really enjoyed, especially the people aspect of trying to work through some of the things that come up. Sometimes quite straightforward challenges, of course, but often really the nuance of working with people and trying to get the different wants, needs, compromises, everything in place. And that was the bit that I just found really interesting, especially when it was across borders, because of that difference in the way people approach things, what their expectations are, what they mean and what they really mean. And that was the bit that I think continued to fascinate me. And sometimes it drives me crazy, of course, but I do tend to like change and unexpected change when it comes to a work environment.
Which is most people, that change element is the challenging piece, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And I in no way, shape, or form do I find it easy. Not at all. I'd never say anything like that. I find the problem solving the exciting thing. Normally, there is always a way, and there's always something to think about, or someone to try and bring in, or try something different, or whatever it may be. And I think with the international side of things, working with international, that continues to be the case today. If something comes up that, you've got a plan and still have to do these things that are planned and everything, don't get me wrong, but there's always something that happens.
Yeah.
There's always
Same
something that
plan,
comes.
say, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And so you started to develop your career again, and you step up into a director role. And then it is not long after that that you're starting to think about CIO and think about, how the business is working as a whole. Was that really pushing you into change, which you love, you're
Yeah.
embracing change. But, how was that helping you with your personal development as well as your professional development?
Yeah, so I think I do like the change. I tend to just like learning.
Right.
I think what it really comes down to. Took me maybe quite a long time to realize that. And as much as I sometimes hate the phrase, like there is a bit of probably being a bit of a jack of all.
Mhm.
I hate to say the master of none bit, but I just find things intriguing and like to learn and like try things different. And being in the international office, which at the time was around 15 to 20 people, quite small, meant that there was lots of things you got involved in. We had this huge network, over 30,000 people at the time, over 110, 120 territories. So there was a lot going on, a lot of bits that just didn't fit
Yeah,
anywhere.
that's big. I mean, you're just saying the territories, 120 territories, that many people.
Yeah, yeah. That was it. And there was always something. And again, I've got to bring it back to the people I was working with, the CEO Jeff, the COO Paul, many other people in the team, turning that into Ted and Ben who took over. There was so many things going on and the network was growing. There was more things we were being asked to do or be involved in. And that just gave so many opportunities. So if there was a chance to do something that was obviously interesting, but something I thought my skill set could help with and I was given great opportunities to do it. And that's where the
Yeah.
sort of the technology and general project side of things came in is ultimately there was a lot of things that didn't fit.
Yeah.
And that was some of the bits that I found really enjoyable, and getting to work always with experts from across the network, so across the world, and getting to get to know them, understand how they worked, get some of their knowledge and everything like that. Again, I just find that absolutely fascinating that you get to work with these different people who've got all of this deep knowledge and experience and things like that. So that's what led to that area. And it's all cliche and everything now, but it continues to be technology being a huge driver and a fundamental change. And at the time, that was the case. And we
Mm.
needed to spend more time on it. We needed to do more as a network. And we had great leaders in the network. And my role was less, to be honest, it wasn't technical or anything like that. I hopefully had enough knowledge and learned enough to be able to talk the language and everything like that with everybody. But ultimately, it was working with real experts and leaders across the network
Mm.
that we had, and being able to bring them together. So that's what got me on the technology projects and ultimately CIO journey over more recent years.
Well, that's really interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at the tech space, everyone's talking about AI. I'm sure that's something you talk about all the time, which isn't just tech, it's part and parcel of it all, isn't it? And with your role now in the CRO capacity, that must be essential to have that level of, as you say, it's not you understanding everything, it's having the experts with you, but understanding how to communicate effectively with so many different people.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. You don't need to be the expert in something. I think the key is understanding and being able to talk and know who to pull in. And it's such a broad area, but it is hopefully picking the right things to prioritize, having the right experts on the team, and giving the right support and time for them to be able to do those things. And I think that's the biggest thing in any of our businesses, marrying that up. And then what you hear from the technologists, what you hear from the service line leaders, what you hear from management, what you hear from everybody who's doing the work, all of the trying to marry that all together is really the biggest challenge, as opposed to the underlying tech and things itself. And so many opportunities there. How do you pick the ones that you go for? So at the moment, that's extremely useful. And I think we're all looking at that. We're all grappling at that. I think we're doing a great job with all the people we have in our network who are leading the initiatives and the support that comes from the board and everyone to back those people. The biggest thing is how it does, again, another cliche, how fast it's all moving, as us keeping on top of it and being able to identify those things and move quickly to make sure that we've got the best solutions in place for our people and our clients. So it helps no end, and that's never going to go away.
But I think you're right. I think, the change, the speed of change that is happening is unbelievable, and being able to pivot. And you are a large organization, as you say, with all the different territories, but you have to, and you are pivoting to make sure that you're at the forefront of the change that's happening. So I think that's
Yeah.
pretty special, to be fair.
Yeah, it's such a nice place to be able to see that 140 firms, 110 territories now. You've got so many people doing great things, and many of those things obviously align, and they should align. But you've also got, I kind of always describe it, it almost feels like 140 startups
Yeah.
or 140 kind of incubators of great ideas that,
Interesting.
particularly, it might be something that starts there because it makes complete sense for their territory or the way they do things, or even the resources they have or don't have. But then the ability to then get to take that and see who else can use that, or how can it be expanded, or how can it work in certain markets is super interesting of what we've got here. We've got so many great things and great ideas. So it's just a heck of a journey to be on.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you do a lot of travel, because you've mentioned all the territories that you cover. How important is it for you to have this in real life meetings, in real life relationships with people? How essential is it in your role?
To me, it is absolutely fundamental. I remember, obviously, when with COVID, many times people saying this is never going to come back, you're never going to travel again. And not saying I knew better or anything, but I struggled with that because I was like, well, why did I do so much travel in the 10 years before? I know video side of things, everything like that wasn't as good as it's got in the last 5 or 6 years, but it was there.
You know,
I've worked with video calls and online calls and everything like that from when I joined International in 2011 onwards. And it was fine. It worked well. And it's better now, but it was still good. But we still did in person because it is a people business and we want to spend time together. And I'm hugely supportive of virtual, but it's just a balance. Everything has, I think, a time and a place. And the things that we can do together, particularly when we're getting together as a bigger group and, one-on-one, also equally important. But there's certain things when we're trying to collaborate, work through things. There's things when there's good things to work on. There's also things when there's bad things to work on. And doing that in person can be absolutely invaluable. Just having that actual FaceTime, being able to pick up on the expressions, but more so not just the sitting in the office together or whatever else it might be. It's going for the walk and
yeah,
having a meeting and having a chat. It's going for dinner in the evening. It's talking about what we do in your personal lives, about friends, families, partners, everything else like that. Like that's never going to go away. And that investment and that time together is so much more important. I know I've been around now in the network for a long while, but there's so many people who are, of course, they're colleagues, but they're friends. And that's come from spending time together and going places together and making those kind of memories and things. So I can't see it ever going away. It would be, if anyone looks at it just as a cost of a flight and things like that. And I know there's other considerations we need to take into account, but again, from a balance point of view, there needs to be some of that. And for our network, people getting together at select times of the year, again, makes all the difference. It makes it more personal.
Yeah, it accelerates relationships, doesn't it? Once you have face-to-face time, and then you can normally revert into some kind of virtual
Exactly.
conversation. But I think it's interesting, even if you go for a meeting and you're walking from a lift together with somebody and you have a small talk and you find out something interesting about a person, whereas I think you're right, Teams meetings or Zoom meetings, they start and stop pretty quickly. So you do lose some of the good bits around meeting people as well. So it's so important. So you've talked a lot about the people that have had this impact on you in your career, some of the leaders you've had, the mentors, your peers. How important is it to invest in this as a network for yourself, and how do you pay it forward?
To me, it's the number one thing, and by a long way, the most important thing is having that network and having those people around you who help support, guide, sometimes tell you no, sometimes calm you down, sometimes pep you up. I just don't think there's anything more important in a career than that kind of network that you can build and people to help you, and then hopefully vice versa as well to help them. And certainly in terms of then doing that going forward, I mean, it's something that, in all honesty, I would like to do more. I don't feel like I've done enough. I hope that I'm supportive and I give time and things. I would love to give a lot more. I'm actually about to go away for work for a few months as well. And part of that, the reason of going away and giving up some of the things that I'll give up, is to give opportunities elsewhere, still be there to support and to help wherever I possibly can. But I think the more of that you can do, the better. Like it's kind of cliches again and everything, but I definitely want to leave any role I'm in and leave it in a better place, that someone's going to come and do it better than me.
Yeah.
And I'm not scared about that. I hope that's the case. I mean, that's any role I go in, I'm going to take over from somebody. I'd hope that I can make it better because they've built a fantastic platform. But I think when I really look back and all of the great things that have happened, there's been other people involved who've given the chance, given the opportunity, anything like that. And anyone that, wants to come forward and talk about that or is looking for the next thing, I just hope I could support in the same way and give that time. And again, it's a conscious effort because in all honesty, I know there's times when I felt like I'm trying to help or trying to guide, and actually the best thing to do is get the hell out of the way and they'll be fine.
Get on with it.
Really good, and you've got really good people, and I'm surrounded by amazing people here. We've got such an amazing team, and when I look at it, just everything that everyone's been doing the last couple of years is great. And the most important thing I have to tell myself more is get out the way, because that's just great for them. They're going to do it better than I've ever done it, or see things differently. And then there's things that I can do and other bits that need to be done. We're not short of things to do here and alike. And so the best thing I think is moving on, giving other people the chance to do things, and then you have the chance to go and do things, and everyone moves forward. Yeah. It's the most important thing.
And I love that. I love the fact that you are really investing in that as well. And it's a conscious, it's something intentional that you're doing, isn't it? By creating the safe space for your teams to be able to develop and grow. And it is, we are professional services firms and it's people centric. So we need to put people at the heart of what we're doing, don't we? To make it more successful.
Absolutely. And again, it's hard sometimes because you get your head down, you're doing things, you have a particularly busy time, and that's the time more than ever when hopefully or somehow you need to find a bit of space to step away and go, hang on a minute, is this right that I'm doing this, or right that I'm involved, or anything like that? And I got to say, that's for me personally one of the single hardest things. I don't want to, or not happy to, and most definitely am. I just tend to see a challenge and want to go for it. And sometimes it's like, oh, step back, it's fine, it'll get done. There's another way of doing it. But that is the biggest thing, is making sure there's those opportunities there.
Yeah, I love that. And you mentioned about your internal network and how strong that is. And you've really, again, worked to ensure that throughout your years. And would you say your external network is as strong? And then do you do in professional services firms, you have to do a lot of networking, external networking with clients and generating new clients, or to keep those relationships. How intentional do you have to be now with your external network?
Yeah, I think the external network is something that's probably grown more and consciously grown more over the last 3, 4, 5 years.
Okay.
And has really been needed to help, to challenge, to see things in a completely different way, to get outside of the industry. I'd like to think I know, the network very well, which I should do. I've been here long enough that I should know. Do I know everything? Heck no. Can I get so much better at lots of things? Undoubtedly so. But also, it's quite clear that I need those outside influences, ideas, to see things in a different way. Otherwise, in too much of an echo chamber. So gradually building that up, spending time on more training courses. This year's very lucky to go to Harvard recently, and then be with other professional service leaders in very different industries to ours, which helps to expand that network as well and get different ideas, get challenged in different ways. Just hearing people speak about something in a completely different way, which is important.
Was that a game changer for you? I know people that have been through similar things have just said it did open up so many different ideas and options.
Yeah, I really do. I would definitely say so. And it's just a couple of months ago now, but there's so many all the time. It's in my head about thinking about things in a slightly different way, and why would, even if I got into specific topics about technology, but more importantly about people and the people side of things, and some of the learnings we had there and the connections and the lecturers we had in those spaces, that really did sort of bring it home and bring it back to, if I can put it this way, back to the basics, that it is all about people and those different things to bear in mind at all times. And actually just sometimes even the simplest of phrases, like if it can be discussed, it can be fixed, and things like that, making sure those things happen early as opposed to just dwelling on it, thinking it will go away, anything like that. Best one in the world, even though I've got more than enough experience to know that doesn't happen, you still can find yourself falling into those kind of traps. There was a lot of great takeaways there that really just put things that I'd say it was excellent from a point of view of taking complexity and making it a lot simpler and
Yeah.
being able to have a real game plan going forward with that. But again, I think one of the most important things that something like that gives you is the importance of connection, mentors, coaching, everything like that, and how much you've got to use that community. There's a community there now of 140 people to tap into, but particularly the group I was with who were fantastic. There was 8 of us together all the time. And that's going to be, I think, a hugely important group going forward as a reference point, a support point. And it's, simply put as well, taking yourself away for 5 days and don't get to do it very often. Again, that in itself was kind of game changing, to step into a different environment that they've carefully curated for you. I highly recommend that. Can't recommend it enough.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely amazing, to be fair. So what would you say have you been your personal highlights throughout your career? Because it sounds like there's a lot. I don't know if you can pinpoint one.
Yeah, I think, more importantly, rather than something specific, the personal highlight of everything that's happened is all of the people and very different people that I've got to meet over the years and work with and get to learn more about and understand and, be challenged, and sometimes quite bluntly be challenged about how I've got something wrong or read the room wrong or something like that. And I think that's probably for me is the biggest highlight overall is this, just that exposure and the things that I've got to learn and see over that time is constant. It keeps happening all the time. You get some new situation comes up, whether that's, again, a good thing, a bad thing, whatever it may be, they're all amazing learnings. So I think that's like kind of the higher level, broader side of things. And I think for me, not just saying it because this is where I work, but between Baker Tilly International and then Baker Tilly, which is now RSM, and the people within them, is the fact that I've got to work with just the very best people over that time. I genuinely mean that, for 2 companies, and one where I was basically 5 years and the other where I've been for 15 years now. I would be very happy if the next 15 years of my career is here, because I have had, often the question comes up, well, you've just worked at one place, 2, but kind of they were the same and connection. So 1, 2, and we say, don't you want to go somewhere else? Who knows? Maybe. I know there's a million great opportunities out there and other great places to work. But I think the biggest thing for me is the fact that I constantly get challenged and had opportunities here, and the role changes, even if the title's the same or somewhat the same, the role changes all the time. And so to be somewhere like that, the organization keeps developing, the people keep changing and keep developing, and you keep getting pushed, but all at the time with support behind you. That's the biggest thing to me. I can't imagine being anywhere else where I could get more opportunities than where I am right now. That is my absolute highlight of being able to have all of that in this great family. And I just see that continuing. I think this is a great place for people to be. And I can only thank everyone who's made that possible, to be honest.
Well, that's a great answer, because if you think about how many people feel they have to move to get those opportunities, and as you say, you've been part of this organization that have got great leaders that have recognized when they need to push people, when they need to offer opportunities, and you've put your hand up and said, I'm here, consider me, which is the other half of it. Is doesn't just come from one side, it's got to come from the individual as well, doesn't it? Working really hard. And so what about challenges facing COOs in professional services firms at the moment? Because there's a lot going on out there in the world, isn't there?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And that really does quite nicely, in a nutshell, summarize it. There's a heck of a lot going on. Now, I definitely like to look on the positive side of these things, as I think there has always been a hell of a lot going on, and it has always been going quickly. So, the goalpost shifts a little bit about quite that level of how much is going on and how much is changing. And is that an internal issue, or is there more kind of macroeconomic and external pressures? So I think in that sense, the role has fundamentally stayed the same. As a CRO, there's a lot to do. There's a lot of things you pick up. It's quite a broad role, which, like, as I've mentioned earlier, for me is one of the reasons it's so attractive, is because I like that side of things. I think probably the bit at the moment that I am finding the biggest challenge is I do think that the broadness is expanding, and there's lots of bits that are coming in that we need to consider at the moment. Of course, the technology side of things has always been there, but that impact across multiple areas of the business is absolutely fundamental. And I think the impact of AI in very much good ways affects lots of areas that traditionally will be linked to the COO one way or another, whether that's finance, legal, tech itself, and more general operations. So there's a huge amount there that I think is trying to understand the impact, moving fast enough, sometimes actually slowing things down a little bit and not maybe getting caught up in the hype. I think in professional services, the risk side of things is heightened and only going one way. And again, very much there's many, many good things there and why it needs to be done. But dealing with the sheer weight of that and being able to do it properly whilst maintaining, running a business and being commercial around things is the constant challenge. And it's trying to get that balance at all times between what we've definitely got to do, what's obviously the right thing to do, but then how do we actually do that in a sustainable way that the business can continue? Yes, there's going to be some disruption and change, but how do you marry those two up? So that's a huge, huge one to me. And then I think the bigger thing is actually really trying to think more ahead than in the day to day or even a year ahead, is where are things going, and being able to support the overall leadership of what's going to happen and what's this business got to look like, what's the operating model got to look like going forward, because we're confident there's some pretty remarkable change that's coming, that's happening now and going to continue to happen. And I think that's always been the case. Arguably, this will be a bigger shift. And how do we get ourselves in the position that we're ready to change and to pivot and do things? And we might not have the answers. We know something's going to happen. And I think you can set your business up to be able to be a much better manager and change agent than being shocked by it. I think that's the biggest thing right now with all these various bits going on, is how do we get ourselves in the right position and make sure that we can adapt to these things, we can move quickly, we can take advantage of the opportunities, we can minimize risks, minimize any shocks. I just think there's so many things that kind of knocking on the door at the moment. The biggest challenge is which one's the priorities and how do you get the right help, support, and when do you really go for it or not? So for me, that's what the joy of this role is. So it's kind of nice when there is more of it, and it's about hopefully, again, using that support network, whether it's in the network or outside, to get a little bit more guidance and see which way things are going as well. So it's an exciting time.
Yeah. And it's a good job you've got a strong work ethic to go with that, because that sounds like a lot.
Yeah, there's plenty to keep me. Yeah, I'm very lucky that I do love what I do. So that can probably be dangerous sometimes, and probably get told off a little bit for that. But at the same point, I do love it, and it's always learning, which helps. I think that's what really helps me, to be honest.
And I think it's obvious that you've invested in your career, which I think makes such a massive impact. But what about words of wisdom then? So Adam, when he was growing up in Newmarket, thinking he wanted to do a bit of business, and now COO, Adam, what words of would you go?
It's sort of so easy to see this now, but I think the biggest thing is not to be afraid to ask. That's the big thing to me. I think sometimes things look a little bit scary, or you're worried about saying something to somebody in probably in a position of power or anything like that. But I just tend to find 99.9999% of people are great, and they've been through similar experiences themselves, and they want to help. And if you put your best foot forward, and yes, you've got to work hard and everything. People, I think, want other people to be successful and give them opportunities. So the biggest thing for me, I think, is to ask. I think there's a lot of bits that maybe get left because there is that worry to kind of push or just have a simple conversation. And again, that comes back to the in-person time and spending time with people. So that's absolutely it for me, because I just don't, some people, it's probably a lot clearer. I think a lot of people, it's hard to know what you want or what you like or what you don't like until you've been through it. So taking the opportunity, doing it, asking, getting an opportunity. And then also if you don't like something or it's not quite right, again, it's fine to talk about it. It's very easy for me to say now, but I genuinely believe that. And I've had anybody who was kind of reporting to me, or a brand new junior came into the business and said, I just don't like this, I'm really struggling with it. I'd be so much happier to hear that. That's great. You realize it, and there's always something else there. So I think you just
can't you? You can do something about it if people
absolutely. You got to try and find the thing that makes you happy and you're good at. And I do think those things can go together. But the best way to get there is to ask for that opportunity, ask for support. That's what I would say. Keeping it all to yourself, and I've made that mistake plenty of times, is difficult.
Yeah, and I think that's such great words of wisdom. I think you've really created a psychologically safe space for people to be able to do that as well, which I think is from your learned experience, which is fantastic to hear from such a great organisation. But I have to say, it's been a pleasure talking to you today, Adam. I've really enjoyed it, and thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you. It's been really, as I say, really nice to reflect. Lovely to talk it through. Thank you.
Pleasure.